Alright everyone, welcome back. I am Winter, and this is WinterStarcast. This time we got a TvT on Ruins of Endian between two top Terran players we have in the bottom left-hand corner. You've seen him before. You'll see him again. From Africa, it's Keen. His opponent, in the bottom right, out of Team Liquid, it's Bunny. Alright, we've got a Terran versus Terran here on a relatively different map. Some of the big things about this map: you've got your rocks at the front you can take down to wall off this area. You've got your relatively close air distance with a gold base splitting the difference. And overall, you've got kind of a condensed map where the air distances are relatively close together. That's very important because it could factor into a lot of drop play, a lot of attacks later on. But overall, you've got a relatively accessible 3 bases, but you have to be very careful to defend against air attacks. Now, early on, we see both players, as is pretty customary in TvT, opening up with at least a Reaper. We see Keen adding on a second Reaper, as is Bunny here. Both players getting a little bit of that early aggressive potential while going for the expansions at the same time. And we see some grenades going out from either side. If one of those hit, you can definitely press your advantage. And both players trying to keep their Reapers jockeying for position. We've got the kicker coming in. The Reaper will go down out of Bunny, but the Hellion comes in to burn him to the ground. It looks like the real victor will be Keen here. Of course, just looking at the vision, both players have knowledge of what their opponent is making early on. They should realize how to defend. We see Bunny going for the 1-1-1 opener here. He's been able to add on his reactor, where Keen is just now doing so. So we can go, we've got a little bit of a victory here. Will he be able to press his advantage? Bunny already has a couple Marines, but a couple Marines are not enough to deal with this Reaper 2 Hellion combination. So while he's adding on that third command center, he's got his map control. He knows his opponent can't put together enough units to be incredibly threatening. He's still got to be careful while he's building this third. But Keen not opting for the aggressive route, getting a third base himself, investing in that command center. So we're going to see that little bit of early harass. I like this choice out of Keen. Go for the medevac. The only way you're really going to get damage is getting in behind the front right now. So he's going to come in. I think Bunny has realized this at this point. He's splitting the difference with his units. He doesn't have his Viking out quite yet. It looks like Keen will get in. How much damage will he be able to get done? This will set the tone of the early mid-game here. We see a couple in the way of SCVs going down so far. A few more being targeted. With that Reaper and the Hellions, he can one-shot SCVs. The tank will help out a lot. 5 have gone down so far. And, well, there we go. 6 SCVs for the cost. We look at the units lost. We see Bunny's lost a bit more, but of course that lost income is very important. The lack of SCVs means it hurts more to build barracks. It hurts more when you're not money off that third command center. It hurts more when you're trying to up your productions. Now I want to take a moment to thank Base Trade TV. This is one of the replays from their Matcherino show matches. Remember to check them out live, twitch.tv/BaseTradeTV. Some of the most regular casters in Starcraft 2, especially of smaller tournaments and stuff like this. This was actually a couple $100 show match between these two players, which is always great to see. Alright, now, what's going to happen in TvT? Let's talk about how TvT goes. It's all about the Marines, it's all about the tanks, the upgrades, and importantly, the tank drops. Especially on a map like this, being able to get your medevacs into position, like right now. Oh no, Bunny had air control, but the Vikings coming out of Keen. Both players understanding how important it is to have that early air superiority. So that's a big deal. Because right now, the big units are anything that comes out of the starport of the factory. The Marines are really just the filler. Of course, you can't have a cake without the filler, without the... What am I trying to say here? What is this metaphor? A cake? Well, anyways. You know what? No more cake metaphor. It's not 2011 anymore. Portal did not just come out. But it's important to have your Marines in front. It's important to have your Marines to be able to buffer for your siege tanks. But the real kicker comes in out of these tank drops in the air superiority. A player who has the air superiority of the Vikings can force scans. They can force an engagement in an ideal position for them. And Bunny has taken a pretty solid hit in losing those Vikings, really stretching out and getting his head chopped off effectively with those Vikings going out and getting sniped off, as we see Keen pressing that advantage. He now has 4 Vikings of his own, which is something that I don't think Bunny will try to contest. We see he's just building his medevacs, and he's staying back defensively. If he loses either of these medevacs, that's a pretty big loss. We still see the tank in position. Looks like Keen willing to press this advantage with just the 2 tanks, but like I mentioned, the most important units come out of the starport in the factory. The Marines are just the filler to make up the rest of the supply. But he's got a lot of barracks up. Keen has finished up his barracks, but Bunny does have a little bit more in the way of production online for those Marines, just slightly quicker, so he should be able to make up a bit of this supply deficit. We see the worker count 10 more in favor of Keen. Not a huge deal with mules involved in this scenario, but it looks like finally the tanks will move up and they will be under fire. The splash damage washing over both of the tanks on Keen's side of things. Oh, one more shot would have finished him off, and Keen wasn't actually paying attention there. But he's still doing the damage with this tank drop, despite those tanks having next to no HP. Yeah, Keen caught sleeping there just a little bit. Now we're building the unit compositions. We're building the armies that can go around the map, that can essentially fly around the map and get the damage done. Neither player has taken critical damage. Bunny took some early hits, but Keen hasn't found an opportunity to capitalize. He's just gone for his production. He's gone for his upgrades. A little bit ahead was Bunny on the 1-1, but Keen has finished up his armory. The Marine upgrade timings, and also very importantly, the siege tank upgrades are a big sticking point. As we can see, the tanks are taking down the rocks, and he's going to be going for a 4th base. This is definitely a map where there are relatively small choke points where defensively siege tanks are incredibly good. Incredibly good. And it looks like another medevac getting taken out. Bunny taking these little leads. He's grinding his way back. Keen going for a drop. Neither player really has much in the way of static defense to protect their 3 bases. Investing in the sensor tower right around the time you're going to take a 3rd base is a very important timing, so that way you have vision of whether your opponent is coming in for a drop, so you have time to react and move your forces into position. Keen already preemptively with some Marines ready there, because he knows how much of a threat a doom drop can be, even if you have the few second warning the sensor tower does provide. All right. Now we see just nothing in this medevac up here, so no real threat coming in from the top. Combat Shields has finished up for Bunny. Neither player investing in the 2 tech labs early on. They want as many reactors as possible in order to churn out those Marines, because the Marine count is more important than the Marine upgrades, at least to start. Making sure you have that infrastructure is so incredibly important. It looks like Bunny going to be able to force Keen to drop in towards his main. Are we going to have something of a base trade here in this base trade match? It looks like Bunny just going to the other side. There are not that many units out of Keen. Combat Shields is not done. Neither player has 2-2, and Keen's going to be forced to retreat. And Bunny will seize the opportunity and move forward all the way onto the high ground. He has no Marines here to support quite yet, but he's moving them upwards, and Keen looks like he's pushed himself out of position here. He has the higher army supply, but Bunny has the position on this high ground. He's shelling the 3rd base, and the Vikings will finally come back. I'm not sure how long Bunny's going to be able to hold this location, but he's done the damage. He's killed the reactors. He's killed a few SCVs. What? No? Somehow he managed. Keen pulled his SCVs away just in time and took actually no economic damage. But in losing those reactors, he will lose his production just a little. Now, importantly, Bunny has not finished his 4th base yet. Keen has access to a planetary fortress at this location. Bunny has been supply blocked for a couple minutes now, which means he's not been able to max out. So obviously the army supply is in favor of Keen, who also, let's look at the tank count, 11 tanks to 7. And that means he's going to be able to bully Bunny out of positions here. Even if the tanks are not in the medevacs, he can move up and siege them, and he has such a tank lead. And now he's about to have that +1. Did Bunny finish it? Yes, he did. All right. Now, the +1 for tanks is incredibly important, because instead of killing other tanks in 4 shots, which is no upgrades, no armor, no nothing, it takes 4 shots for a siege tank to kill an opposing siege tank. But with that +1 vehicle weapons, it only takes 3 shots, not to mention the additional splash damage on the Marines, especially once they get their armor upgrades. But being able to kill your opponent's tanks in one less shot is a huge deal if you can have that advantage or keep that even. But Bunny taking a great position on the high ground to finish off the Marines, but Keen is coming in from 2 different locations at the back. Bunny trying to move forward, but this is just not an engagement he wants to take. His Marines run into the meat grinder and get ground they shall. And Bunny losing most of his army almost instantaneously there. As he will be forced to retreat to deal with these drops, and so much damage has been done. Keen on point while Bunny just not paying attention, and the tanks do what tanks do best. Looks like this counterattack will force Bunny out of position. He's got a couple extra command centers. He's lost several more SCVs. He has not lost the game quite yet. Keen taking his advantage literally everywhere, and no, he's not paying attention. It looks like he'll throw right on back. TvT, throw versus throw, as both players losing huge amounts of supply in these last couple attacks. But now Keen, he has the map control, he has air control. These Vikings will allow him to bully Bunny out of position almost constantly. And that is a huge deal. He's even taken the gold. He has every base and more. And he has all the income he needs. So what is the production? He's oh my god, the structure's 10. I can't even see it. He's got 8 barracks against 5. He's got 2 factories against 3. And I'm surprised that both players only have 1 starport at this point in the match. But Bunny is expanding upwards. He's trying to find a position here. The Vikings taking their toll, but it's not too heavy. So far, the tanks move forward, but into a concave for Keen, who takes the opportunity. He seizes it, and he will crush Bunny's force here. Bunny getting a little bit desperate, and in his desperation, finding himself in a vulnerable position. This planetary fortress is not finished yet. Most of the medevacs will get away. 3-3 is finishing up for both players, but I think in this scenario, obviously, Keen is favored. 11 tanks to 6. 7 medevacs. Wait, no, 8 medevacs to 7. And very importantly, has those Vikings to be able to push forward. Nothing in this drop up here. It looks like it's been cleaned up. But Keen is bearing down with what looks to be a potentially game-ending force. And no, there's no turrets on the high ground. So we will be able to move forward. The tanks drop down later for Bunny, but we'll get a nice volley. The planetary fortress is going to keep these Marines back. It looks like once again in this massive Terran versus Terran slugfest, Bunny will swing back at the supply of Keen. It's 152 to 128 as Keen moves in towards the main, the only turret in the main, doing a decent chunk of damage. This tank is pretty hurt. This position is difficult for Bunny to dislodge. As I say, at 3 tanks slam into these Marines. But the Vikings trading out some of that supply. There's just so many tanks knocking directly on the front door, and there's nothing to make them go away. He's going to keep knocking until he knocks the door down. It's 160 to 143 supply, and while Bunny has not lost much in the way of army supply, he has lost much in the way of position, and now Keen doing that classic Terran versus Terran strat of pushing forward with the Vikings and forcing your opponent back step by step. You're going to try to go for the drop into the main. The tanks will bully forward from this position. Good thing he doesn't need the engineering bays anymore. But now, the forces are unloading in the main. They have been dropped out, and they're ready to fight. Bunny going to just completely abandon his base. He's going what looks to be for a base trade. Are there any medevacs? If there are, they will come and dump these tanks forward, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Medevacs getting pushed off, and Keen can just retreat. There's a relatively sad force over on this other side without any medevacs to support it. More forces coming up from Keen, and now he's found himself at a 50 supply lead. As we see the tank shelling at the wrecks, the production is under fire. There are no reinforcements, there is no hope, and there is a victory coming out for Keen here in this match. Thank you guys for watching. That was a pretty sick TvT slugfest back and forth, but you could see Keen in the driver's seat for most of that match. Congratulations to him. I believe he won this series 3-1 was the final score. Not 100% sure, but maybe I'll cast some more games from it. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to give me some feedback. Like, subscribe, do all that other YouTube stuff. Catch me on stream. I'll see you later. Good luck, have fun, and happy StarCrafting.